and welcome to everyone to LinkedIn Studio Sessions 2023. And I agree, I'm so excited about the lineup we have in store for you for the next 2 days. As she said, Gail Moody-Bird, I lead marketing for LinkedIn Sales Solutions, and we're delighted that you're here. We put together this program to help you, salespeople and other revenue-generating professionals, to navigate this confusing era that we find ourselves in. Because you know what? It's tough out there right now. We feel it too. We're all faced with declining conversion rates, I know that as a marketer, pricing pressure, and all of the other headwinds that are resulting in fewer and fewer reps hitting their quotas. A lot of sales leaders that we talk to are trying to right the ship with things like more training, more coaching, more incentives. Those things are important, really, as much now as ever, but we deeply believe that the thing to watch is AI. So while AI isn't new to us at LinkedIn, the recent advancements that we've made using this technology are really changing the game. All the shifts that are shaping up to be so monumental as the advent of the internet or the advent of social media. It's a really important time. So here's what we know for sure. With every disruption comes both risk and opportunity. So my question to you is, are you going to embrace this change and use AI to help you do what you do best, engaging in high quality conversations with the people that matter, or not? That's really the heart of our discussion today. So let's get into it. The two people I have sitting next to me have some really interesting perspectives to share on these topics. So it would be great if each of you could introduce yourselves, and as we do at LinkedIn, share a little bit that's not on your LinkedIn profile. So Matt, why don't you go first?
And you told me you were going to ask this, but now I got to think on the fly what my answer is.
Right.
I had the whole flight from the East Coast to think about a good answer to this question.
I
know. Correct. There you go. Thanks, Anish. Okay, so Matt Dixon, I'm a co-founder of a firm called DCM Insights, where we help companies attract customers, grow those relationships, help salespeople become more effective. We really use research-based methods to really understand how customer buying behavior is changing and what the best sales marketing organizations are doing to adapt to that. This is very confusing for people, especially my parents, I think. So they know I live in DC. They don't really understand what I do, so they assume I'm a spy, which I'm not. But I think the best description.
Isn't that what spies usually say?
It is. Actually, you're right. It is. But I think the best way to think about me is I'm a sales anthropologist. So I use, again, research-based methods to understand what are the best commercial organizations doing differently? How are they adapting to changes in customer buying behavior in the environment, new technologies like AI? And so that's what I do.
Okay.
Sticking to it. And forgetful probably would be the thing that's not on,
that's not on your profile. So Matt's being very modest. He is also one of the authors of The Challenger Sale, which is the seminal methodology in sales that so many companies are using right now, and also the author of a new book, The Jolt Effect. And so you're being modest. Now, Anish, why don't you take it away?
So Anish, I'm a vice president at LinkedIn, head of the Opportunity Project, but I'm going to steal Matt's self-description of sales anthropologist. I am a aspiring economic anthropologist. And as I've thought about that, what it means is in my day job, I work with private sector leaders and public sector leaders to bring skills first thinking to the center of how organizations manage workforce development. But for that work, I spend a lot of time thinking about the history of work, looking back centuries, looking out decades. And it's led me to believe really that we are alive at a time when we can create more economic opportunity for more people in more places than ever before. And why that matters to me deeply and personally is the thing not on my LinkedIn profile that matters most about me, which is that I'm the child of immigrants. So my folks came here from India in the early 70s. America was the land of possibility. Our family defined the promise of America as anyone from anywhere can do anything. And I think we've all realized over time that that isn't a promise for all. It's a privilege. Anyone from the right zip codes or with the right pedigree can do anything. And so a lot of what I think about is how do we make that promise real for all, our vision at LinkedIn? How do we create economic opportunity for every member? of the global workforce.
It's a note to self improve my introduction. What Anish said.
Well, the two of you have another thing in common. Anish is being modest because he is a former Obama speechwriter as well as a war correspondent for CNN. So thank you both for being here. So needless to say, there's a lot to talk about with these two gentlemen. So let's kick this off with two interesting data points. LinkedIn issued a Future of Work report a few weeks ago, and this stat got my attention. Our data shows that 59% of sales skills can be augmented by generative AI. It is the third most impacted profession in our study. These skills include things like cold calling and inside sales and other things that you can imagine would be automated. In fact, McKinsey recently reported that AI can free up nearly 20% of salespeople's time to do other work. So this got me thinking about how generative AI can enable new ways of working that brings forward the human element of sellers' work. Where is that more important than in selling? We think we are the perfect use case for this. So Anish, let's begin with you and get a point of view from you of what LinkedIn's been looking at and how AI is impacting the future of work.
Yeah, so AI is this really hard thing to get your head around. It's just so massive and it's early. And I've been thinking about it a lot, especially since November when ChatGPT brought AI into the mainstream when it comes to the world of work. And I've thought about 5 big things that all of us need to think about when it comes to AI. The first is that it is a really big deal. AI is going to fundamentally change virtually every aspect of how we work. But second, what makes it hard is that it is going to hit different functions and different sectors in different ways over different time frames. Even as sellers, depends on where you live, what market you're in, what company you work for. It's all going to play out differently. So there's no one answer, there's no universal solution, which means third, the most important way for us to manage this is with a skills-first mindset. And what that means is take your job, put aside your job title, think about the tasks that you do in your job, and start to think about which tasks AI is going to take on, even fully, which tasks you're going to do with AI, like prompting, and then what's left, the tasks that you as a person are uniquely going to be able to do. And for sellers, what's exciting is that that's going to bring those people skills more to the center, those things that AI isn't set up to do. So fourth, it's going to really then, with that mindset of jobs as tasks, not titles, fundamentally change how we build companies and careers. There's going to be a lot more focus on workforce agility, a lot more focus on upskilling individuals. But ultimately, the fifth point I think we should all keep in mind is where you started, Gail. I think the other end of this is a world of work that is phenomenally more human than the world of work we have now. A world of work where people skills are core to individual success and where people-to-people engagement are core to company success. And what better example of people-to-people engagement leading to company growth than sales? And so I think this is going to be a renaissance for those core skills that have always made good salespeople good salespeople. It's going to be something that we're all going to talk about.
Thank you. So with that in mind, we had a conversation as a warm-up a week ago, and I know, Matt, that brought up lots of ideas for you. So how do you react to that? What does that mean for you in terms of how you understand seller behavior?
Yeah, I'll pile on a little bit here, Gail, because I can't agree more with what Anish is saying, that this is what really AI is going to change in sales is going to usher in this really, the importance of that human element of selling. I think there's a stat I saw recently that only 32% of seller time is actually spent selling, right?
Yes.
Actually face-to-face with the customer or engage in a conversation with the customer. I feel like AI can feel a bit overwhelming, right? There's a lot of use cases. There's lots of different ways to think about it. Everyone's standing on the edge of the pool, wondering if the water's warm. And then, do they dive in head first? Do they toe dip? What do they do? Maybe a simple way to think about it is from a sales out perspective. I read an interesting article. You cited the McKinsey study. A BCG article recently talked about 4 specific use cases. If we really got down to brass tacks, there is AI as a really capable sales assistant. Help me prepare for calls. Help me update the CRM. Help me take notes, right? There is AI as a personal data scientist, second use case. Help me identify the right opportunities at the right time with the right value proposition, the right outreach, et cetera. There's AI as the personal marketing assistant, which has helped me craft a really tailored, personalized outreach that resonates and cuts through all of the noise that you know your customers are bombarded with. And the last one is AI as a sales coach, like help me get better at selling. Help me understand from what the best sellers do and apply it to my sales motion. Now, from the sales back perspective, what I might say, from the customer back perspective, that's a sales perspective. From a customer perspective, I might say, sales is really ultimately about two things. It's about, should I stop what I'm doing today and should I go to something else, right? Should I move from this and should I go to something else? So that's about overcoming the customer status quo and then instilling the confidence on the new path forward, right? So the first motion for the customer and the first decision is this even worth the change, right? Have you, as a salesperson, answered the why change question for me as a customer, which is very deep. And we know people are genetically engineered to not want to move forward, right? They want to sit on the fence and want to stay on the sidelines.
Back to your point in Jolt.
Exactly.
Indecision. And you have a name for it, a term for it.
Yeah, so we talk about, on the one hand, this idea of overcoming the status quo, this inertia that customers, and this is hard for salespeople. Yeah. How do I convince the customer what you're doing today is not good enough? That what we're talking about is a much better path forward, and that this is a top priority for your business. And for salespeople, that's about dialing up the FOMO, right? And then the second phase, once the customer is convinced that what I'm doing today is not good enough and I have to do something different, it doesn't mean it's a foregone conclusion to move forward. Salespeople see this all the time, because customers get wrapped around the axle of what we call FOMO, the fear of messing up. And so they lack the confidence.
The fear of messing up.
Right? Well, this is a family-friendly program, so the non-family-friendly version is FOFU, but I'll let the audience figure out on their own what that stands for. But that's the really tough thing. So if I think about this, where should we start with AI and all these opportunities? I think about those sales use cases I mentioned before, those 4 use cases. I think about the journey the customer's on. Should I move from what I'm doing today to something else? And then I want to get kind of laser focused on the area of greatest opportunity for me as a salesperson. What I personally feel, or for a sales organization, what I personally feel like is it's that element of instilling confidence to get the customer to move forward. They're convinced rationally, but emotionally they're still sweating it, right? The FOMO reigns supreme in that world. I've got to get them to feel like this is a great decision. We're going to be in good hands, and I'm going to look like a hero, not like a fool. That having that conversation is a decidedly human thing. And so I think what AI does is it frees up time so the salesperson can really focus on that, because that's the toughest part, I think, of sales.
Yes. But as these jobs are transformed, the question is, how do we get from here to there? Yeah. So Anish, as we're thinking about companies that we're working with, because we want to be that trusted advisor, how do we start to think about this for sales leaders? How do we get them through this fear of messing up, fear of inertia? AI is so overwhelming. How do you think about that problem with business leaders that you've spoken to, maybe even in other disciplines?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's helpful to understand how much of history repeats itself. So those of us who are old enough to remember can go back to the early days of the internet and think about all the questions we were asking then, including what is the internet, that famous Today Show clip. We don't talk about the internet anymore. We talk about e-commerce. We talk about content creation. The internet is just this framework, this foundation for all of these new and innovative and dynamic ways that we've been able to buy and sell and grow. I think that's going to play out over AI. So the most important thing to think about is AI is a tool. And humans as a species, as I think about the economic anthropology part of my job, what we do really well as a species is we develop and leverage tools of increasing sophistication. That's been true for tens of thousands of years.
Hammers, wheels.
All of it. And then technology has been this new level of tool, the internet and computers. AI is a new level of technology. But it's always been and always will be a tool that we use, and that increasingly helps us do more of what we do best as humans. And so that's where you get to the people skills that sellers, the best sellers, have in spades, that ability to have empathy, that ability to make a connection. And I think one thing we are going to start talking more about is trust. Because everything you talked about in a world that is a lot more augmented and virtual, people are going to seek out real, authentic human connection. And they're going to demand that in terms of the credibility to shape someone's behavior from FOMO to FOMO to all of that.
Yes. So I love your blue checkmark point. Please talk about that.
Well, we've come out of this social media era of the blue checkmark. I want to be important. I want to have that blue checkmark. I think we're at the start of the LinkedIn green check mark being the new big thing, because that green check mark, and those of you who are on LinkedIn and who haven't done it, go do it. It means you verified that you are the person you say you are, that you work at the place you say you are. And why that matters is because if I'm engaging with you on LinkedIn, I need to trust your insights and your credibility. But if I do, suddenly that opens up an arena where in a world of just virtual augmented realities, I have an authentic human connection. And that's an arena I think that salespeople are uniquely positioned to play in.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've talked a lot about this idea that there's this secular kind of decline in trust that we've seen in institutions, I think in salespeople, in vendors, and what's real, what's misinformation, should I trust this person? That's why we always go back to the people we know or who are recommended personally to us. And we've talked about just one example, which I think is a very powerful one in sales. And Gail, we've had many conversations about this. How do I get more conversations with the people that matter, right? That is a really, really important thing for sales, arguably the most important thing in sales. And when you think about the way it's done today, and there's a famous study, I think you and I have talked about, the HubSpot study about the explosion in cold outreach that happened during the pandemic and the collapse in response rates. And the reason is that these are generic, impersonal, not credible, arguably not trustworthy, not authentic, timed inappropriately. Other than that, they're great. But really what it does is it gets ignored. It goes right into the spam folder, or it might get you a 4-letter word kind of response from the person you're reaching out to. You're burning through leads, you're sowing distrust, you're just putting yourself behind the 8 ball. We know from the data that a warm introduction is the opposite of that, right? A warm introduction is, it feels authentic, it's personal, it's tailored, it's credible and trustworthy because it's me saying, Anish, I saw that you just started this new role at LinkedIn. And you're working with Gail. I actually used to work with Gail at another job, and here's what we did together. I'd love to talk to you because given what we're doing at DCM Insights, I think we could really help you in the Opportunity Project and what you guys are doing at LinkedIn. And that kind of outreach is very hard to ignore. It gets your customer to engage and lean forward because it's authentic, it's real, it's timed appropriately.
Yes.
But the reality is, great salespeople have always put in the legwork to do that, right? But how do you do that at scale? Yeah.
They take it one step further.
Right.
So thinking of scale, we talk a lot about multi-threading.
Yeah.
And there's a stat that we have in some of our research that shows that with 6 connections within an organization, the close rate is up by
Way more
34%.
likely. Yeah.
So just knowing not only one person, but using that to leverage and really get to know an organization, all the decision makers, all the influencers, that's really the value that's provided by something that's approached as a person-to-person job as opposed to this robotic role.
Yeah.
So this is the danger of AI. It's got great sides, but so much of what we're hearing in the market is going to bring on what we termed robotic selling, which means more imprecise and impersonal messages done at a higher rate, more easily. What do you think about that threat and the tendency towards the market to make salespeople technologists as opposed to sellers? Because I think the threat is real, and these plummeting response rates that we talk about can be exacerbated by AI.
I think you're exactly right. Arguably, AI could be used to equip sellers around the world with spam cannons, that they're just going out there, firing off impersonal outreach that gets ignored or worse, right? Burns your credibility and trust with your customer. Or it can be used as a force for good, right? If we know what the best sellers do, which they've done, long before LinkedIn even existed, they put in the legwork, they thought about the connections, they thought about how do I find my way in? Who's the hidden ally, right? How do I make a tailored, personalized, contextualized, trusted, credible outreach? And now we have the technology to do it at scale. It's sort of a tide that lifts all boats, right?
It should, if used correctly.
If used correctly. You're 100% right. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's where I think also in an ocean of impersonal spam, the smart sellers are the ones that are going to zig around that and start to really differentiate with that authentic, trusted, credible outreach. It stands out. And what's exciting to me for sales, if you go back in history, like you said, at the end of the day, there's only ever been one thing that has fueled economic growth everywhere in the world, and that is 2 people coming together and doing something together. Most often, buying and selling. Also investing in building, hiring, executing. But if you think about it back even 10,000 years ago, people had to do that in a very personal way because you were doing it proximate to the people around you.
Yeah.
Now that meant you and I shared the same culture, shared the same language. I knew everyone you knew. So it made it obvious and intuitive that I was going to build this authentic connection with you as I sold. Now we're in this globalized economy. Everything's gotten more complicated. And this is my hope for AI, Gail, is that it will be also the answer to the accelerant of spam, which is AI as a systems tool. You think about LinkedIn, and AI-powered LinkedIn means now across geography, across language, across all the different things that we have between us that make it hard for me to meet you where you're at.
Yeah.
I've got this personalized coach, this personalized assistant that's saying, hey, here's what he's up to, here's where he's been, here's how he's thinking, so we can get to that person-to-person bit.
I'll be nerdy for a moment here.
Okay.
But I heard somebody use this metaphor, which I like a lot, is think of AI used in the right way, right? Not the wrong way, as like Jarvis to Iron Man or Iron Woman, right? It's a suit of technology-powered armor that is feeding you the information, setting you up for success, a phenomenal coach, doing all the stuff that, honestly, people like spin their wheels are not very good at, to free you up to do the things that people were built to do, right? That machines can't do. And so I think it's a hopeful and exciting future that we're looking at.
So that brings us back to the point of upskilling and training. This is a behavioral shift. As we move from credentials and other kinds of just accreditation, how do you think about upskilling? I wonder what both of you, I know you think about training quite a bit. I know you think about upskilling. There's a lot of change management here because we've trained the robots of selling of today. How do we get them to a place where human-centered selling is at the center of what they do? You first, then I'd love to hear about the skilling, the upskilling. We're in for, and I know many of the CROs that we're talking to are concerned about training, incentives. How do I get my team from here to there?
Yeah, I mean, it's, one thing I will say is that whether you're rolling out a new technology, new comp plan, new product, it doesn't matter, and I think this is something that all people who study sales understand, the role of the frontline manager as a coach to create safe zones of practice, to provide the right guidance to their salespeople. That is the reason any new sales training program, or really anything, sticks or doesn't stick in sales. So whether it's using Sales Navigator, or whether it's adopting a challenger methodology or a jolt approach, it really doesn't matter. The role of the frontline manager is absolutely critical. I think for sales leaders, though, to break it down, it's a crawl, walk, run. How do we think about whether it's deploying AI or training investments that are really targeted to solve the problems that we're most pressed by right now in sales? That would be, going all in. Transformation is exciting. We all like to talk about it. It's also really scary, right? How do I start? It feels overwhelming. People's mind, it's the same thing that people think about with AI,
And it puts revenue at risk.
It puts revenue at risk, that's right. But if you think about, there's this weird moment we're in right now, whether it's a sales training program, whether it's should I go in, or is the water warm with AI, should I jump in the pool head first, or should I toe dip? They look at this and any transformational initiative, and they worry, have I engineered it the right way? Have I made the right choices? Have I done enough research about what could go, what to do, what not to do, and are we going to get what we're paying for? Or is this going to blow up my face? Am I going to look like a fool or a hero here?
Because how many bad technology investments
Tons.
have all of us made on the marketing side for MarTech and sales tech?
Yeah, and nobody wants to sign up for that. Nobody's going to put their badge on the table for that. So, we need to be quite thoughtful about that. And that's, again, where a great salesperson plays a very powerful role to instill that confidence that you've made a great choice. Why? Because I've done this 1,000 times before, and I'm here to guide you to making the right choices, knowing what you should sign up for and what you should leave out of the shopping cart. I'm here to guide you down the learning curve because I know what I'm talking about. I'm an expert in this field. You can trust my guidance. I've told you what to buy, what not to buy, et cetera. And I've got your back. We're not going to leave you holding the bag here. We've done this before. We've got a roadmap for success. So again, whether it's a training program, it's a technology investment like AI, salespeople play an absolutely critical role to overcome that FOMO, which will, people want to move forward, but they just can't. They're just stuck.
So we know a lot about upskilling
Yeah.
and change management. How do you think about that as you sit in the center of this whole conversation about changing the skills of an entire workforce?
I think, and this is true for all professionals, not just sales professionals, there are new digital skills and there are new hard skills. And we can approach everything with that mindset. The new digital skills are AI-related skills. All of us are getting better at prompting. I've gotten better at prompting for my purposes. And at the core of those new digital skills and the AI skills are getting used to new tools. So think about that bucket as testing and learning, not deciding and locking. You all showing up to listen to these sessions today to hear about how Sales Navigator is going to incorporate AI, that is you getting smarter on how AI is going to impact a tool that you're using. That's what we all need to be doing all day, every day right now, is knowing what tools we need to use and how do we get smarter. Then there are the hard skills, which for a couple of decades now have been engineering, coding. They're going to be the soft skills. Those are going to be the durable skills, the people skills. What's interesting for us, I think, at a society level is we haven't figured out credentialing like we have for coding boot camps and for engineering degrees, but we're gonna.
Certainly haven't.
Yeah.
But we've got a playbook that we used over the past few decades that is going to get built out now for the soft skills. And sales professionals are at the front of that know-how. So I think there's also a leadership position for the sales professionals in their companies to help the rest of the workforce understand how sales has been credentialing those best sellers who have those best human skills. And my hope kind of at the anthropology level is philosophy is about to have a renaissance. I mean, if you think about one of the oldest disciplines, it's all about critical thinking, empathy, change management, social cohesion, ethics, all these conversations about AI ethics. Philosophy has been thinking about it and debating about it for tens of thousands, for thousands of years. So
maybe the dominant college major will change.
I think we'll recalibrate a bit. I think humanities will have a moment. I think the smart people won't take it as a pendulum.
Which means I was ahead of my time.
Yeah, there you go. Or you'll come back.
Who knew?
But it's about calibration, not correction. Don't rush to an answer.
interesting.
Start to understand, test, learn, build.
Yeah, I think as these, I love that framework. And as you think about all of us getting better at prompts and using these tools and these technologies, what happens is a lot of the rote and routine things start to go away, right? And that time spent available to spend selling with our customers increases. And what do we do with that time? Well, it means we really need to get very good at these soft skills, right? It is the empathy, it is the overcoming the FOMO, it is instilling that confidence. And so I think that is the next frontier when you think about skill development for sales organizations. There is stuff that in a few years, salespeople won't be spending time on anymore because they've got AI as a time saver, as an effectiveness coach, et cetera. But now the spotlight is very bright on the things that they've lacked for many, many years, which is the empathy. It's helping instill the confidence, get from I want this to I bought this, from intent to action.
So coming full circle, we started out with a data point that said 60% of the skills in sales are under threat. I think that, the potential of being augmented by AI, which can sound very threatening. What you both have painted is a picture that says this is a cause for optimism because it opens up and redefines the nature of the work of sales. So just any parting thoughts about what the opportunity is? I think we've covered it very well, but I think the 60% for me was shocking until we had some time to talk through it and think about it. And I think with the right change management, it's a huge opportunity.
Well, and I think the right way to think about that 60% is based on where sales had gone over the past few decades. It's very impersonal, sales tech-driven function. And again, like history of work, for tens of thousands of years, our physical abilities were what mattered most. We were hunters, gatherers, farmers, herders. It's been a couple of hundred years where our cognitive abilities have mattered with industrial revolutions, the internet age. I think AI is going to open this era where our social abilities are going to matter more than they ever have before. And sales professionals at the core are really at the tip of the spear of what that can mean within commerce and work, but also for us as a society.
I'll say, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say nobody ever got into sales because they enjoyed updating the CRM or forecasting or doing background research. And that's not why anybody ever did this job. And it's not what's fun about the job. They did it because they loved the moment of convincing the customer to change and instilling the confidence that they made a great decision and then seeing the fruits of that decision.
Right, being a great partner, a great consult.
That's what gets them out of bed in the morning. And so I actually think the hopeful thing is sales is about to get a lot more fun because you're going to be able to focus on the things that are cool about the job, not the stuff you don't want to do.
So I hope the audience takes that as a moment of encouragement and understands that the opportunity ahead of us is great. So I want to extend a huge thank you to both Anish and Matt for our thoughtful discussion today. I hope that you all found it really helpful and feel much more prepared for what's ahead. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Sahar.
Thank you, Gail. And a huge thank you to Gail, Anish, and Matt for sharing their perspectives on the future of sales. I don't know about you, but there were so many aha moments there. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but I feel like one of the biggest moments for me is AI is really going to allow our sellers to get back to what they love to do, and that's building relationships and being with their customers.